What's up, guys? Thomas Mott here. Welcome to the Thomas Mott Show on a Sunday. Still waiting for the Eagles to announce both their offensive defensive coordinators. Have some details on how that could be tomorrow's big story. I think they're going to announce them tomorrow. And also, Quez Watkins and Jalen Ramsey. One might be traded to Philadelphia. One might be traded away from Philadelphia. Are either of them smart? Let's go ahead and figure it out. Starting with the Quez Watkins stuff, I think this is interesting. We've talked about Quez Watkins here on the Thomas Mott Show before. The idea of cutting him makes a lot of sense, but The Athletic, via Bleeding Green Nation here, thinks that trading him actually makes a ton of sense for Philadelphia, meaning they're going to get rid of their wide receiver 3 and have to either promote from within or go sign somebody else. Here's what they say, quote, potential trade cut. Wide receiver Quez Watkins, 2023 cap hit, $2.78 million. Cap savings is cut or traded before June 1st, $2.74 million. Dead money if cut or traded before June 1st, $42,415. Indication there. The Eagles don't really have a proper answer to this prompt. There are a few players which contracts designate for designed for them to be post-June 1st releases. Cox for sure, along with perhaps Brandon Graham and Jason Kelsey, depending on their decisions about their futures. Watkins had an underwhelming third season in Philadelphia as a number 3 wide receiver following A.J. Brown's addition to the offense. Upgrading from Watkins won't be the Eagles' top offseason priority, but it's something they'd like to do, perhaps in the middle rounds of the draft. Watkins still offers top-end speed, so if there's a team desperate for some, Howie Roseman would certainly be opening to a deal, end quote. This article basically says what we've been saying for a long time. They're going to get rid of Quez Watkins one way or another. The money just makes too much sense not to. Whether you cut him or trade him before June 1st, even better, you're going to go ahead and basically save about $2.74 million in cap space, and dead cap space, meaning you can spend that on Jalen Hurts' contract, spend that on C.J. Gardner-Johnson's contract, spend that on an up-and-coming free agent, or go ahead and just give some more money to Javon Hargrave if you can go ahead and bring him back. But the idea that Quez Watkins is going to return to me is very, very far-fetched. Now, I do want to go ahead and be clear about this. Quez Watkins is not that good of a wide receiver and was grossly underwhelming this season, dropped a lot of very key passes from Jalen Hurts, but the free agent options don't make a lot of sense. That's where I push back on this article just a little bit. Let's say they want to get rid of Quez Watkins and go find somebody in free agency. Take your pick here. You have Robert Woods, Nelson Aguilar, Sterling Shepard, DJ Chark, Randall Cobb, Marvin Jones, Julio Jones, Byron Pringle, Alan Lazard, Juju Smith-Schuster, Jarvis Landry, Olamide Zaccheaus. Sure, there are some names here, but you say, Thomas, there are tons of names here. What are you complaining about? Well, you're not going to get any of these people for $2.74 million. At least not a lot of them that you'd actually want to go ahead and grab. Maybe Sterling Shepard makes a little bit of sense. He made $10 million last year. Is that going to be someone who's going to take an $8 million pay cut? Obviously, Robert Woods is going to be too expensive. I think Nelson Aguilar returning makes no sense. DJ Chark made $10 million last year. Will he take 2.7? Do you see what I'm saying here? Sure, even if you wanted to pay a wide receiver $5 million in free agency, you still have to get some of these big-name free agent wide receivers, or at least big name for this year's class, to go ahead and come to Philadelphia. It just doesn't make a ton of sense. Now, the other part of this article is mentioning that Philadelphia could use a mid-round draft pick to draft a future wide receiver or draft a current wide receiver 3, and I would say, great, that sounds really, really good. However, where are your mid-round draft picks? I consider first, second, and third rounds early round draft picks. Philadelphia has no picks after the third round of the NFL draft this year. They have 2 7ths. Might have some compensatory picks, and maybe they trade back, which you go ahead and open up some more picks as well. But right now, Philadelphia doesn't have any trade options or in terms of draft options at the same time. And so while I agree, getting rid of Quez Watkins does make a ton of sense, and I think that they're going to do it, we got to remember there's not much in-house. And you can comment Devin Allen down below like a lot of people do. You can comment Greg Ward down below like some people do. I've seen him, that's why I'm calling him out. But the odds of that being the answer to me don't make a ton of sense. What I think is going to happen, and let go of Quez Watkins and go find one of these cheap, maybe often injured wide receivers who could make some sense for Philadelphia. Mecole Hardman, a Marquise Goodman. You can kind of look at maybe a DeAndre Carter. Maybe you bring back Zach Pascal and elevate him to be a wide receiver 3. I don't know. But the idea that Quez Watkins is going to be let go, I think, needs to start being a commonplace idea for a lot of fans here in Philadelphia. Now, let's move over here to what I think is the weirdest part of the Eagles offseason so far, and that is the fact they have not hired coaches to replace Jonathan Gannon or Shane Steichen. Bleeding Green Nation has an article saying that Darius Slay, among other Eagles, have been really championing for Dennard Wilson to become the defensive coordinator, who I do think is going to be the defensive coordinator after Vance Joseph was picked up by the Denver Broncos. But what's odd is that they still haven't done anything to sign these people. It's like, what? And you see the Darius Slay tweet here. Man, all these new coaches getting jobs. I know my guy Dennard Wilson should be a DC in the NFL. C.J. Gardner-Johnson voiced his praise for him as well. Let me just say this. I don't know exactly who it's going to be, although I do think internal hires are kind of what's coming on here. I've heard Desai versus Dennard Wilson are kind of the top two options for defensive coordinator. I think Brian Johnson is a guarantee for the quarterback, or for the head coaching job, the offensive coordinator job after being our quarterback coach. I think they're going to announce them all tomorrow. I think they made their decision, but I think they're announcing them tomorrow. That would be my guess. Now, if they do, we'll cover it here on the Thomas Mott Show. If they don't, then I'll say that I was wrong, because I'm wrong often, and so you shouldn't take my word as gospel. But my guess is, with the NFL Scouting Combine coming up middle of next week, Philadelphia will officially have their defensive coordinator and offensive coordinator named, hired, placed, signed on the dotted line, and official before that happens. Because, like Victor Williams pointed out via his Twitter account, who I love following on Twitter, he mentioned that Philadelphia going into a scouting combine, not knowing who's your defensive coordinator, not knowing what base defense you're going to run, doesn't make a lot of sense. And so while people are championing Dennard Wilson, Brian Johnson is probably going to be your offensive coordinator. Whoever it is for those two spots, my best guess is, putting on my Big J journalism hat, it'll be sometime tomorrow, maybe tomorrow morning, maybe tomorrow afternoon, but stay tuned, subscribe, that way you can be a part of that show. I found a quick story here. Zero ties to Philadelphia, by the way. A lot of people are talking about Jalen Ramsey going to the Eagles, and we got to at least acknowledge this because it's been, spread enough around in the community to where you got to at least be like, hey, guys, I understand that this would be a lot of fun, but there's been no real hard reporting on this at all. So to break it all down, quote, the Rams have had trade talks regarding cornerback Jalen Ramsey. NFL Network insider Tom Pelissero reported Friday afternoon. Pelissero added the league sources believe it's very likely the six-time Pro Bowl cornerback will be traded in the coming weeks. Now, this doesn't mean that Philadelphia has not called, but there's been no reporting saying Philadelphia has called. And let's be 100% honest with ourselves. Jalen Ramsey is not the answer for Philadelphia at cornerback. If they want to sign an aging veteran who's played well in the past, and that's no offense to Jalen Ramsey, he's still elite, but you just re-sign James Bradbury. He's familiar with the system, or at least the current system if it's Dennard Wilson. He's very well, obviously, last season in tandem with Darius Slay. You just re-sign your guy. But having to trade draft picks for Jalen Ramsey, then re-sign Jalen Ramsey to a new contract, as reported earlier this morning, doesn't make any sense for Philadelphia. It's not going to happen. The Eagles will either do one of two things at corner. One is re-sign James Bradbury. Two, we'll go ahead and draft a cornerback at number 10, or I guess 2B, promote Zach McPherson if you really believe Zach McPherson is ready, although no indication this past year shows us that he's actually ready to be a starting cornerback. So this whole idea that Ramsey could come to Philadelphia, if this was 4 or 5 years ago, yeah, this would have a lot of steam because Philadelphia would desperately be needing a cornerback, and Ramsey would still be kind of in the prime of his career. He's still very good. And again, no hate to Jalen Ramsey. I've met the guy in person. Really nice. I just don't think he's at the point in his career where Philadelphia would feel comfortable trading one of their 5 draft picks away to get him. Only have 5. And then re-sign him to a deal when they don't have a ton of money to do so. So I don't expect Jalen Ramsey to be dealt to Philadelphia. I think some other team that has a lot of draft capital, you have 10 picks, you got a lot of extra money, you need a cornerback, go ahead and make that deal. I'm really circling the idea that Joey Porter Jr. or Witherspoon, the cornerback who might be the best corner in the draft, are kind of the best options for Philadelphia right now at number 10. Doing something Howie has not done in a long time, and that is spend significant draft capital on a rookie cornerback to come in and be a starter opposite of Darius Slay. No better time than never. Slay's not getting any younger. I think you bring him in now. That way they can learn under Darius Slay and possibly take over to be the number 1 cornerback of the future. Okay, again, plenty more stuff happening this week, including our Wednesday live show, 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Myself and Josh Davis of the Philly Special Show. That's a new show we're doing every single Wednesday night live. So be sure to stay tuned for that. And of course, hit the subscribe button because you never know what's going to happen this week. Combine stuff, new coaches. You never know if they cut somebody. Jalen Hurts contract. I'm Thomas Mott. This is the Thomas Mott Show.